The opportunities that are in this industry are huge. That as a crop is perfect for housing. That means we're more competitive in the housing game to sell hempcrete.
The Hemp Inside company that is the sponsor here is with Colin Steady and Matt. I've met Colin a couple of times and I'm pretty sure he's going to give it to you straight. You're going to hear that coming out, and it's nice to have that honesty, because as part of your submissions to the inquiry, be realistic, be honest about where it is, because there's huge gaps. But if we share that gap with somebody in the audience, they're going to turn around and go, oh, that's my role. I know something about that. I can fill that gap. I'll invest in that, or I'll develop something to do that. So it's important that these sort of opportunities to share and not reinvent the wheel and learn from others' experiences are held. So it's great to have you all here at the Hemp Connect 2025. With that said, I'll hand over to Bob.
Thanks for that introduction. I've taken a different view to how to approach this, and I want to look at where the industry's going, and it's out of a frustration in some ways. So I want to talk about the need to identify the products we need to make, to use the whole plant, and what that then means coming back as a grower, what the grower has to do to make sure we meet the specification for the product manufacturer. The opportunities that are in this industry are huge. And they've been there for a long time. And I first got involved in this with Phil Warner way back in 2008. We grew our first crop with Phil in 2010. And I was a dairy farmer who just ceased milking cows, and I was looking for an opportunity. Since then, we haven't really grown very far as an industry. The seed industry's grown quite well, and the seed industry is very, very good on specs. And that's one of the reasons why the seed industry got some momentum. But the seed industry is having issues around this same topic as well. So we've got to have a good look at what the gap is between what we can do as growers and what the actual product manufacturer wants. As an industry, if we're going to be competitive in the products we're trying to make, we have to lower our costs. Our costs of production are too high. That means we have to look at all of the products that come out of the decortication process, or whether we're using whole crop products, but we have to get into some real nitty gritty. Now, I didn't make the Geelong Forum, but the presentation that was given by Colin on my behalf was looking at it from the other way, from the grower to the decorticator, that specification need. In looking at what's happened over the last 12 months, I think we're going backwards, quite frankly. So we have to have a real good look at where the manufactured products that we can make economically at a profit, and then the manufacturer needs to define those specs. The decorticator has to then produce that product for the product manufacturer, and the decorticator needs to tell the farmer exactly what they want. They need to be really precise about it. And if you look at the last 6 months, I know we're here trying to look at the real size of the opportunity. We've actually been going backwards. And I found this whole process, I was really positive about the opportunity coming down here. And then I've got really flat when you look at some of these big companies, these big investments, and they're going backwards. Where are we going wrong? And I don't think it's that complex. There really is a great opportunity in this industry. I'm just going to use an example here. Colin Steady took some bars products from 9 decorticators from around Australia over to China. Now, I sent a container load of bars fibre to China a few years ago, and it didn't pass spec. I learnt what I had to do, and we have improved. The 9 samples of bars from different decorticators from across Australia, 2 of them were only pulp. Now that's still a useful product, but there's no value in it. You're not going to make any money. The manufacturer's not going to make any money, and that means he's not going to pay the grower enough. So the crop's just not going to get grown. only one product of the 9 decorticators was nearly suitable for manufacturing into textiles. And that was one that we'd been playing around with. But look at that. Only 35 to 45% of the bast fibre that we sent to China was suitable for manufacture into textiles. The fibre was too coarse and needed more retting. The planting densities were too low. Now, when we're growing for housing products, our planting densities down around, we grow at about 25 kilos to the hectare, and we can get lower. But when we get really high germination rate, we can get pretty low. That, even with our high germination, and even being an ideal herd product for building manufacture here in Australia, it didn't pass spec to go into textiles, and we need to sell the whole plant. Here's a product. It's a structural I-beam made out of bast fibre, and a lot of you are aware of this. It's load bearing. The bast fibre in that is not retted. So here we are trying to send a product to China to get it into textiles. Ours isn't retted enough. To make that I-beam, which has tremendous potential here in Australia and around the world, it's not retted. Demand's high. It was our bast fibre that was closest to making the spec for textiles. And that's the key. Ours has to be retted. So you've got to think about this. The product manufacturer has to really spell this out if you want the grower to do the retting. It's the grower who does all the retting. Now, if the herd is going into housing, the crop should be grown without any pesticide. If that's one of the specs to go into a housing hempcrete house, there shouldn't be any pesticide in it. Does the grower know that? Yeah, is that part of the contract?
Why is that, Bob? Why no pesticides?
Fundamentally, it's a breathable wall, and the market doesn't want. The people who are building hempcrete don't want pesticide breathing in their wall. So that bast product that was going into that structural beam, well, it doesn't really matter. But if the herd of the same crop is going into a house, completely different. So this is the point I'm trying to make, and it's the reason I've looked at it from a different perspective. I was never a product manufacturer as such. I started as a grower, I got into the processing, and I was just aiming to produce a product that the manufacturer wanted. I couldn't sell the bast. That's why we stopped processing. Now, when you take this the rest of the way through, the decorticator processor has a massive influence on the method of harvest. Some decorticators want round bales. Some want big squares, or happy with big squares. Some of the decorticators just will not use big square bales. That's pretty simple. The amount of retting is the complex one. So the decorticator has to know his market, and from there send the information back to the grower for their harvest specs on the amount of retting. Now, some of the housing products require different levels of density of the herd. That comes back to length of sowing or length of crop growth. It impacts on some of the crops that are grown that are used. So we're looking at grain crops, where you're talking about a much shorter growing cycle. You don't have the same density in the herd. And then you've got the quality of the bast. And as a decorticator operator, the product manufacturer doesn't care whether you've got a market for everything, but the decorticator does. They have to sell everything that goes through that machine, or the price of the product gets too high. And fundamentally, if we're going to make inroads into the housing industry, we have to drop the price of herd. Herd's too dear to go mainstream housing. It's all right in a niche market, but if we're going to grow thousands of hectares of this, we've got to get the price of herd down. So we've got two levels of spec here. We've got the spec that the decorticator needs, and then we've got the spec that the farmer needs. The first one for the farmer is redding, but then we've also got to go all the way back to sowing. Then you look at the different decorticators, and this impacts on the profitability of their operation. Different decorticators get a variation in the yield and the quality of the herd, and more importantly, there is a big variation in the quality of the bast. And that was the problem with all that product that Colin took to China. The bast spec just didn't make it for textiles. And that's our premium market for us. The product that, the Hexcore product, that bean, that's been a premium market. That's hard. It is hard to decorticate an unredded crop. The decorticators, the throughput of the decorticators to meet that spec is very low. As soon as you get a low throughput, your costs go up. So that's a house made from product that went through our factory we had at Dungog. I think that used Clara's binder, that one, did it? This next one's another house. This was on at Shepherd's Ground Eco Village. This definitely used Clara's binder. There's about 20 odd houses on that site now. When we made that herd, all that bast we could never sell. The different bast markets require different length of chop. Different decorticators can handle different lengths of chop. It's up to the decorticator operator, processor, to tell the farmer what length it's going to be cut at. Obviously, we've just been talking about round baling. Some decorticators take round bales and need round bales. Some are happy with big squares. Dry matter percentage just needs to be spelled out. It sounds simple. The amount of leaf that's allowed in the harvested crop. Right? Leaf going through a decorticator that's producing herd for housing or bast doesn't want a heap of leaf in it. So one of the things that you do when you're making hemp bales is you do the exact opposite to what we as farmers have learned on how to make good lucerne hay. We do the complete reverse because we want the leaf left in the paddock. And one of the big advantages for the farmer by leaving the leaf in the farm is it reduces our fertiliser bill significantly. So the amount of nutrient that's in the leaf for the next crop, and you're talking about crop rotation, it is a tremendous opportunity for the next crop when you grow a biomass crop if you leave the leaf behind. There are some decorticated crops with double cut opportunities where you take the leaf off. The amount of seed. The crops that we grew, perfect for housing. The bast was not of high enough quality because our stems were too big. We didn't have enough plants. We didn't maximise the yield of the bast. It didn't matter when we couldn't sell the bast, but if we can sell our bast for $2,000 a tonne, that means we don't need to get as much money for our herd. That means we're more competitive on the housing, in the housing game to sell hempcrete. We can manipulate that. Thanks. We can manipulate that by just changing our planting density. That's pretty simple. That's how we cart it out of our farm. That represents less than a hectare of crop. Once we start shifting this around to manufacturers, we've got to get into B doubles. Now that B double there, that's illegal. We're not allowed to run B doubles where we had our factory. But the only way we could make the economics of this work and shift this to the product manufacturers, to get it on, we had to cut our costs. At the farm level, we've got to be efficient. So, where are we? You want to stop me? And
No, you've got another couple of minutes, Bob.
Right. We got to get our farming right, and we're talking about reasonable scale of gear. That's a machine that we cultivate, we deep rip, cultivate, roll, and then use a precision seeder. There are crops that have gone in this year, like we're talking hundreds of hectares, that haven't come up out of the ground. because the paddocks weren't prepared properly. Now, you got no chance of meeting the spec of the decorticator in the first place, but somewhere along the line, this communication process just has to improve in this industry. That's us mowing our crop. Now, that is a crop. It's perfect for housing. It's not perfect for the textile market. That's same crop, different area of the paddock, lower yield. That's the minimum yield you need to make when you're paying $400, $450 a tonne to the grower. You've got to grow good crops if the farmer's going to make any money. Or to pick up what Richard was talking about, you're using hemp as a crop rotation. What's the competition? You're making more money out of the other crops. So unless hemp is there on gross margins per hectare for the farmer, they're just not going to bother. So we've got to get all this right. That crop there looks pretty good for housing. It is not good for textiles. I showed this photos here. This is perfect to plant a follow-up crop, your next crop, be it hemp or something else. Weed control, there's no weeds. No pesticides used in any of these crops. You don't need to. Our pesticides shading. Here's a crop, it's on our farm as well, 2 different varieties of seed, poor germination. One seed just didn't have good viability. Like, that's a disaster when you go down the next level, that's full of weeds. That is no weeds and herd extraction is just impossible to get quality. And we've got to change our thinking about how we do it. The manufacturer is always right. We've got to make this happen from the perspective of the manufacturer and work backwards. We've got the alliance, we've got the council. I think it's really, really important that the subcommittees and the different associations across the state, we have to keep communicating around the different interest groups. We have to work more and more as a team. Because we've got this fantastic crop, we've got this fantastic opportunity, we're just not making it all fit together properly for some reason. And I think it's great that we've got this. Congratulations to the council for pulling this together. But we've got to keep working across all the different subcommittees, across all the state organisations, so that we keep communicating. There are a few people I've rung around just chasing this through, and I'll just put them up there to just say thanks. There is this great opportunity, so thank you very much.